Hello, Garland Nixon here, and the powder keg in the Middle East, that is the Israeli Palestinian conflict, has blown. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and great to be back. A couple of things. People have been saying, Garland, you haven't been doing as many videos lately, and that's true. And one of the things, I am not on KPFK anymore, so that's going to give me some more time. I've been busy, but I've been doing a lot of too much stuff. So let's just say I'm planning on getting back into the groove of things here. Winter's here, or fall's here, or something's here, and time to. Needless to say, there's one or two things going on. We're going to talk about the Israeli conflict. I will do another video later on today or first thing tomorrow morning to talk about yesterday's escapade in New York, where I gave a speech for the United Nations Security Council. So that'll be coming tomorrow, and I'll read my speech. All right, let's go. Israel. A couple of things. Here's, I'm going to give you some thoughts that came to mind. And one of them is, one of the discussions when it comes to Israel is about this, the destruction of Israel. Israel be destroyed. Whether, Israel's worried about being destroyed, or that it's surrounded by people who are angry at it. And, they want to come in and blow Israel up. And the destruction of Israel is oftentimes part of this conversation. What if there is a potential for the destruction of Israel, but it's not from an exterior source? Let me explain. I do think we could be looking at what could be effectively the end of Israel here. And let me explain why. And this is something that I haven't heard a lot of people say, but this is something I thought about. The end of Israel, not the destruction of Israel, but the end of Israel, where there ain't much left of it. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of people know recently lost a brother. My brother passed away a couple weeks back. And cancer. He'd been sick for a long, long time. He was and all things, he was a retired military. He was a soldier. He was a special forces, all that kind of stuff, and retired military. Okay. Well, he was also Jewish. He converted to Jewish when he was in the military in the 80s or whatever. And so we talked, and I would go to his house, and sometimes he'd have friends from his what do you call the temple, synagogue there, blah, blah, blah. And I learned some things that I didn't know. So here are my thoughts on that. I think this is important to think about, because I haven't heard people talk about this. And to me, it's glaringly obvious. It's the first thing that I thought about. Look, what is Israel's attraction to people who there, right? There are a lot of people who I've known. Some of my brother's friends, they lived right here. They lived in Pikesville. They lived in Annapolis. Pikesville is a place north of Baltimore with a very, very heavy Jewish population. And I knew some of his friends, though he was very pro-Palestinian, let me just say this. But I knew some of his friends that had dual citizenship, right? Then they had citizenship in the U.S. and citizenship in Israel. And my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the things that Israel says is, you're a Jewish person and you live in Paris, you live in New York, you live in Jersey, wherever the hell, right? You live in this place. And there could be anti-Semitism there. There could be frightening, horrible things there. We got the ADL, they're looking into it. There's anti-Semitism all around you. You got to be scared. But we got good news for you. We have our own state, and it's called Israel. And that's where you can come and be safe, and your culture and everything's here. So you can still keep, right? Isn't it their argument? Isn't that what they argue? You can still keep and maintain your citizenship in the United States, France, Russia, wherever the hell, right? You can still maintain your citizenship there, and you can have dual citizenship here in Israel, and you can come and go as you please, and you can stay here in Israel, and blah blah blah. And in Israel, let's face it, they have like free healthcare. They have a lot of social democracy things there that we don't have, even though we pay for a lot of it. But that's a whole nother conversation. But whatever the case may be, so they make this argument: come to Israel where it's safe. You won't have to worry about the anti-Semitism. You won't have to worry about this. You won't have to worry about that. All Jewish people all over the place, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, I'm thinking to myself, and I recently had heard from some of my brother's friends, and they're like, oh, yeah, my buddy, so-and-so, he just got back. His other friend, they're coming back. And I'm hearing about all these people that are returning from Israel. Why are they returning from Israel? Because it ain't safe. If, in fact, your argument to attract people from all over the world of a particular religion is come here where it's safe. People won't go after you. There's no anti-Semitism. It's safe. Now you're from Brooklyn, New York, and you're in Israel, and missiles and bombs start landing. And now the leadership of Israel says, we're going in after Hezbollah. Well, first of all, warfare in an urban environment, a lot of people ain't coming out of that alive. So if the IDF, which it appears they're going to, I don't know if they are, if they're going in to Gaza on foot, the casualties will be unthinkable, right? As it is, they're slaughtering civilians like crazy now. But the bombing, indiscriminate bombing all over there, claiming that they have Hamas targets or whatever. It's reckless. The term that I like to use from my law enforcement days, a reckless disregard for human life. That's the way I look at it. I am very consistent when it comes to these types of things. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Hamas. I don't care if it's Israel, Russia, Ukraine, whoever it is. Here's what I say. If you're going after military targets in a military conflict, I don't like military conflicts, but under international law, those are legitimate targets. If you are recklessly disregarding the lives of civilians, that is a war crime. I oppose that. I'm against war, period, but I particularly oppose war crimes of indiscriminately bombing areas where there are civilians. Okay. So I want to be clear about that. Indiscriminately attacking any place, putting civilians in danger. Even as I said, Hamas took some civilians hostages. I oppose that. I don't care who it is. I don't care what your reason is. A war crime is a war crime. You're not supposed to take civilian hostages. Please, somebody can justify it, whatever they want to. I'm not going to say, even though I can make all the arguments why the Palestinians are in a situation where was quite foreseeable that they would react in the manner that they did. But even all that saying, I'm very consistent when it comes to civilians. I think you have to leave civilians out of this conflict as best you can. Now, of course, we see what's happening with the Israelis, a reckless disregard for civilian life, human life. Okay. So my point being, when it comes to, I wanted to get that caveat in there, but my point being is this, and I thought about this. When the Hamas attack first started, one of the things they did was shut down the airport immediately. Did they shut down the airport because Hamas shot planes down? I didn't see planes get shot. I think, my opinion, I saw a lot of people. I saw videos of people running for the airport, heading for the airport. Why were they heading for the airport? They weren't going there to hang out. They weren't going there because they liked the food. They were trying to get the hell out because they are there. Why? What are they told? You're Jewish. Come here where it's safe. There's no anti-Semitism. If it ain't safe, what is the point of being there? It is my opinion, there are those who may disagree with me, that one of the reasons that they shut that airport down is because people were getting the hell out. It was stampede time. And look, let's face it, wouldn't you? There's a war going on. You're from Brooklyn. There ain't a war going on in Brooklyn. I ain't saying Brooklyn's the safest place in the world. I ain't saying it ain't. I'm just saying there ain't no rockets landing in Brooklyn. You're getting out. And one of the vulnerabilities that Israel has is that a lot of people there have dual citizenship, and the country they're in right now is safer, or from is safer than the country they're in. And I know of instances via some of my brother's friends where they're like, oh yeah, my family members have been over in Israel. I'm worried. They're trying to get home. They're going here to catch a plane. Oh, they crossed the border here. Oh, they're blah, blah, blah. People are getting out. They're leaving. And if Israel ends up with all of these Jewish people who have a dual citizenship going back where they came from, ain't nobody going to have to destroy Israel. The destruction of Israel will simply mean it'll be uninhabited. There'll be, some settlers. There'll be, old Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and their people. That'll pretty much be it. And I would suspect that even some of them, when the bombs start dropping, are getting the hell out. Israel right now, the Israeli government has decided we're at war, right? If you look, you're in a country that's at war and you have dual citizenship and the other country ain't at war. What are you going to do? You're getting in a plane and you're going back to the country that ain't at war, and that's where you're staying. Now, maybe when this country that's at war is not at war anymore, you might go back, but maybe not. Here's the other part of it. So the Israeli government's like, okay, we're going to go into Hamas, going in after Hamas. So they go in. The losses would be unthinkable for all sides, and of course. But let's face it, the Hamas fighters, I think, have to be. And this is my opinion. As I listen to them, as I read, they are of an opinion that, hey, man, we're here and we're going to get bombed. We're going to get killed. We're defending our homeland. They're more so ready to die in the fight. More so. I'm not saying nobody wants to die. I'm saying it appears to me the Hamas fighters are there, and whoever else can get in and fight with them, because I'm sure there are a lot of other people trying to get in to fight with them. I've read lots of stuff and saw lots of stuff that leads me to believe that there are a lot of fighters from all over the Middle East that are flooding to the border that are spoiling for a fight. And they're there to fight on religious principles. They're there to fight on their moral principles, and they're not like, okay, I've got to come out of this alive. Man, I don't want to fight people that ain't going to come out, that aren't thrilled, that don't care if they come out of this alive. They're there to fight for the right thing in their opinion. If they don't come out alive, so be it. I don't want to fight that guy. I ain't interested in fighting that guy. Nobody wants to fight somebody like that because they don't care if they leave, long as they take you with them. Remember what Malcolm X said, your life is the most important thing you have. You got to keep your life. Hold on to your life. It's all you got. But if you got to go, take 4 or 5 of the adversaries with you. That's what he said. I think that's what you're looking at with Hamas and its fighters, right? Who wants that fight? So you got a bunch of people in the IDF. Let me add this. Again, to my brother's synagogue and some of the people that visit, I've met lots of people that they went there, Israel, and they did whatever, 6 months, a year, whatever it was in the IDF. These people were not like, you ever see the movie Predator? Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura and these special ops guys. The people that I met, they weren't those guys. Right? They weren't like my brother was one of them. You know what I mean? He's a former soldier and he was a bad dude, right? They were people who they did what they had to do. They were told, hey, you got to spend whatever amount, 6 months, a year, 2 years in the IDF. They did it, and then they were out. And they weren't spoiling for a fight. They weren't itching for a fight. They were, I would call, middle class, some upper, some privileged class, etc. But they were not there to go traipsing through the ruins of an urban scene and charging into a machine gun nest. That wasn't their plan, right? So I can't see that a whole lot of them are going to be volunteering, call and say, hey, can I get back over to Israel? Can you put a gun in my hand so I can go into this urban fight? Who wants that? And furthermore, if that happens, young people that would normally say, okay, we're going to Israel and we're blah, blah, blah. We're going to get our dual citizenship and we're going to do our time in the IDF and blah, blah, blah. I'll be like, yeah, I think I'll just pass on that dual citizenship thing. I'll be staying here in Brooklyn, chilling out in Maryland, Glen Burnie, wherever. I know people at Severna Park, right where I live, right? They're gonna be like, no thanks, right? Now, add this. If Israel goes in here on ground, and they on the ground, their losses are going to be nasty, and they could end up fighting in the north, Hezbollah, taking lots of hits. They could end up on the Syrian border. They could end up with some kind of a jihad against them, where these and it's not like this. It's not like Jordan, the country of Jordan, or the nation of Saudi Arabia, or a nation would attack them. I don't think that the governments of these countries are going to attack them. But a recent poll, let me say this, Saudi Arabia, as an example, a recent poll in Saudi Arabia prior to the firing up of this recent conflict said that when the Saudi government was pushing for normalization of Israel, 2% of the population supported it. 98% of the population was against it. Saudi Arabia then what? This conflict started in Saudi Arabia, said, hey, we'll forget that normalization stuff, we're out, right? Because a lot of these governments know they could fall. Keep in mind something. This act could cause some of the more, and I'll use this term reticently, guardedly, some of the more moderate, and in moderate, I don't mean that as the normal political perspective. I mean, in the context of the Middle East, in the context of governments that want to refrain from military action from getting involved in military actions against their adversaries, and in particular, Israel and the United States, right? Some of the governments that are less inclined to get involved in those kinds of military confrontations could fall to governments that are damn inclined to do it, that are like, let me at them. This could happen. You could see it. I will guarantee you this, that the government of Jordan could fall. The government of Egypt could fall. Egypt not as likely, because the Egyptian government is so controlled by the military. But what happens if the military gets furious and says, that's it, we're going after Israel? You see what I mean? They're putting themselves in a position to infuriate the Muslim community. And might I add, here's the other thing that's really going to happen too. Keep in mind, this is critical. And I'll tell you why. So just to finish up. So the first issue I said is a lot of Jewish people, right, who have dual citizenship may get the hell out of there. And what do you have left of an economy? What do you have left if, like, your people all leave and you only have a few settlers or something left? That could be the end of Israel right there. It just doesn't exist because there ain't nobody there to, it's like I had a party. How many people showed up? Well, there was the DJ, there was a guy serving the food, pretty much me. You didn't have a party. You didn't have a party. You were listening to some music and ate some food. Israel, you don't have a country if the people who are there don't voluntarily come and stay. They get the hell out. And that is a danger that Israel's facing. As I said, let's go to the countries surrounding them. I will guarantee you that the leaders of these countries are very, very concerned. First and foremost, they're concerned that the people in their country are furious. The people in their countries are going to be begging for action. No, let me put this differently. Demanding that they act against Israel. Now, here's something that I don't know if you read this, and I don't know when this happens. Qatar has said, and I don't know where this is at now, but I did read yesterday that Qatar said, look, if Israel goes in, if you don't stop, we're going to cut off all the gas to everybody. Now, keep in mind something. The Europeans ain't getting gas from Russia, are they? Oh, they're so wise. They'll fix in Russia. They're not buying Russian gas. And oh my gosh, we don't want Russian oil, although everybody knows that Russian oil is being filtered through India and they're buying it anyway. So, but whatever the hell. But what happens? And I see this as a very possibility. In fact, if I were one of the Arab nations and I wanted to use as much pressure as I could, right? Put as much pressure as I could on the United States and the Biden administration. If I were one of the leaders of one of the Arab countries, that's what I would consider in unity. If they come together and they say, look, here's what we're doing. And we ain't gonna ship no oil out of here. till this stops. Ain't nobody gets oil, nobody gets gas, nobody gets oil. Hey, the blinds are closed, the lights are off, and the door is locked in the Middle East. And if they do it in unison, what the hell can the U.S. do? If one country says we'll do it, the U.S. say, well, we'll overthrow your country. But what happens if Saudi Arabia and the UAE? What happens if the big dogs? Qatar does a lot of oil. What happens if the big dogs say to the United States, either you gather in and you control your vassals, or you're going to suffer. Now, keep in mind something. What's going on? We're almost into winter. The bond market is already kind of rickety, shall we say. The stock market, we've got issues with inflation. You ain't seen nothing yet. If they suddenly say, we ain't shipping no gas out, and no oil, no nothing. If they play their trump card and do that, I don't see how the Biden administration doesn't acquiesce, because if they don't, they are so first of all, if they don't, it wrecks the economies of the West. The US economy is over. Game, set, match. Can you imagine? It's not that the price of gas bothers you. It's the access to gas. What happens? And I've been to a country and seen this before. If the gas stations are closed, if somebody says, well, we'll let you know when this gas has its signs, and it's like Tuesday at 4 p.m., we'll have fuel. And Monday night at midnight, they start lining up. And there are people with tents, with jugs, because they can't drive their car because they're out of gas. That's it for your economy. What are we going to do? Then you got, food problems. It's not tenable. So what Qatar has talked about, I don't know if they're going to do it. If they start playing that card, which they can in the Middle East, that's a card that's a winning hand. That's a 5 aces and there ain't but 4 in the deck. That's a royal flush, right? If they say, look, you guys do what you want, but you ain't getting no oil until this bombing stops. And, as a person who is a man who believes in peace, to be quite frank, I would recommend that. If you ask me what should happen, that's what I would recommend, because it is a peaceful act. It's like, we're not going to blow up anybody. We're not going to attack Israel. We're not going to kill anybody. We're not going to shoot at your ships. Here's what we're going to do. We ain't selling you no gas. Doors closed. We ain't selling you anything. Or we'll cut down as low as we possibly can, so low that the price is going to go through the roof. Do you really want to deal with that? You can't deal with that. You're going into, and what is Europe going to do? Call Russia? Sorry, Russia's going to be like, sorry, we would give you more gas, but some idiot blew up the pipeline. Have a nice day. Talk to you soon. Big problem. So, I think Israel could lose its population, and I don't see how it recovers, because people have to feel as though there's some level of stability. They draw into this fight. It ain't gonna go away overnight. If they kick this thing off as bad as it could possibly be, then it may already be too late. Lots of civilians die. You're going to have people who want revenge for a long, long, long time. They ain't going to stop just because Israel says if Israel says we're going to chill out. You're going to people that's going to be wanting some payback. And so, and if Israel gets involved, wherein, wherein they're just, doing this ground thing, and then they get involved with Hezbollah. First, they're going to take some hits. Hezbollah is not to be trifled with. Now, Hezbollah clearly is a much stronger defensive force, as anybody is. It's easier most of the time, it's easier to play defense, right? So they're a much stronger defensive force. But here's the thing about it. Hezbollah has the capacity to hit Israel's military installations hard, because they have the rocket attacks that came from Hamas, those are firecrackers. Those are firecrackers compared to what Hezbollah has. So Hezbollah could legitimately strike Israel's military bases and cause significant damage. They could significantly hurt Israel's military bases, right? And here's the issue: what's Israel going to do? Nuke them? You're nuking yourselves. They're on your border. You can't fire nukes on your border, or you just nuked yourselves. I put it when I was talking to Scott Ritter the other day. I put it like this. Look, and this is a problem that Israel has. The nukes ain't gonna do you no damn good. Think about this. As far as self-defense, right? Garland, I'm fighting some guy, and some guy attacks me, and he's 6'5", right? He's got long arms. If I stand back from him, he can reach out, boink. He can hit me, he can strike me, he can back off, he can remain a safe distance, right? And most people don't think about this when they're fighting. They think about, oh, okay, I want to keep a safe distance. Well, if your opponent has reach, your longest weapon may be your legs. You may be able to kick at him, take his kneecap out. But what if he's if he's 6'5", 6'6", you may not be able, even with a kick, you may not be able to reach his kneecaps or groin or anything. He can reach out and touch you. So what do you want to do? You want to do the opposite. And a lot of people will do this. Somebody attacks them. They want to get right here. You get up in there. Now you can do knees, you can do elbows, you can do all kinds of things, but you're too close now. If somebody, think about it, you're fighting somebody, and they're way out there, and you're striking, you're doing whatever, right? Their distance, and you pull you, right? What do you want to do? You want to strike and come back, so that they can't grab your arm or wrist or whatever. You want to reach out and strike and come back, right? And you generate power, right? You can generate your power and all that kind of stuff. But what happens if they're right here, right? You strike, and when you go to swing, the person, instead of backing up, they block it, they whatever, and they get right here. Now you got no advantage. You don't have your length, and you can't develop power with a long punch or anything there. Now they're right up under you, and they're kneeing in your groin. They're stomping on your foot. They're coming up underneath. They smash your chin and rake your eyes and grab your ears, and God knows any and everything they can do, hitting pressure points, you name it, right? Because they're close, and your long length of being 6'5" is no longer of any value to you, because they're right here, and you got to get this person, they're grappling you, they're trying to get you on the ground. You got to get this person away from you so you can use your advantage of length, right? Now, here's what I'm saying. If Israel was to use this advantage of these long strike things or nukes or whatever, of what value is that when their adversary's right in their face? And they got to, can you nuke somebody on your border? No, you can't. You're nuking yourself. You nuke somebody you're going to nuke somebody, and right on the other side of your border, 1 mile away, you got towns of your own. So it negates the fact that they're fighting people that are right there close to them, negates any advantage to use nuclear weapons or some powerful distance, long distance attack weapons. They're right there, and they're hitting you every single stinking day. So that's problematic for them. The fact that they be fighting on their own border, they be fighting right there. One of the things that made the Hamas attack militarily successful is this: Israel does something in Iran and blows something up. That's 1,000 miles away. Israel fires a missile into Gaza. Okay, they blew something up in Gaza. They bomb in Damascus. Okay, that's over there in Syria. But what Hamas did was they took it to Israel proper. So now, instead of Israel firing weapons way over here and distance and all that, this guy's right in their face. He is right in their face. They got up right in their face. Part of it is, if you're Israeli and whatever, right? You sit home. Remember, you've seen pictures of Israelis sitting, like having these picnics, watching the bombs go off into Gaza or Syria or wherever they're attacking, right? So they're sitting there watching outgoing fire. Hamas came in physically, and they said, okay, you're not going to sit here and fire from a distance. They're now coming in, and you're fighting on Israeli territory. They came into Israeli territory, and now Israel is at war on their own territory. That changes the dynamics of the fight. And it changes the dynamics of Israel being able to say, we're a secure nation. They came in and they fought. They didn't throw something at you from a distance. They came in on foot, and they had some success. The dynamics will never be the same in Israel. And if you're in Israel, they came in, and now, get me wrong, I oppose the killing of civilians no matter what. But the dynamic is this: there were civilians killed, and apparently no shortage of them. I've heard various discussions of it. Apparently, there was some kind of a musical concert or music festival or something like that. And I've heard everything from there. Some people have said, well, the Hamas attacked the music festival there, or whatever kind of festival it is. Now, there is also a video out that appears to show, I don't know for sure, it appears to show that there was a music festival going on and there was a firefight between Hamas fighters and IDF, and that a lot of the actual music festival goers were caught in the crossfire, which seems likely to me. It seems like, there's a lot of people. It's a very, very a crowded area. And it seems to me, I don't know, there were some civilian hostages taken custody, but I think, as I always say, I oppose the death of civilians, and I oppose whenever civilians suffer in a military conflict, point blank, period. So, but we've got conflicting stories. I don't know if Hamas fired into the crowd. Hamas has said we didn't, but I don't know. And certainly there's video that appears to show that there were ongoing firefights and that there were people running from the firefights, which seems likely to me. But again, I don't know. I can only report to you the things that I've read. So let me go on. So what we could be looking at now, I think, is the Israelis, if they go in, creating an environment where they're in a protracted state. This is important. A protracted state of conflict. This is why that's important. If they're saying, okay, well, that's right, Israel is in danger as a nation, so we're going to war. We're going to be in Gaza, taking hellified casualties. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to be whatever on the Syrian border, lobbing, rockets or something back and forth, and we're going to be fighting Hamas in the north. Israel just ain't going to be a safe place. It's not going to be a safe place. Not at all. If I were in Israel, I would be trying to find and I had dual citizenship, I would be trying to find an airport where I could get my ass on a plane and head back to whatever the country I had dual citizenship from. If my kid was in the IDF, I'd be like, can we sneak out of this country? You ain't going over there if you're here. I'd be like, this is, let's face it. You go in to a rubble-strewn urban environment, there's no advantage. You know what I mean? Those F-16s, you're walking, they ain't doing you no good. Those helicopters, that stuff ain't doing you no good. You go in there on foot. That is the term. We've heard it in Bakhmut. We've heard it in Avdiivka. We've heard it in all these places. What's the term? That's a meat grinder. A meat grinder. And you have to consider that Hamas would look at this and say, we're going to launch this attack. And we know, you would have to consider this, that Hamas would say that we know what Israel's reaction will be. And which, let's face it, we know what Israel's reaction can be, would be. We understand it. It was unpredictable for all of us. And they lived there. So they predicted it. So in my opinion, in my opinion, the Hamas fighters, the various, and there's various other fighter factions, and I will guarantee you there's other people from outside of Palestine, outside of Gaza and the West Bank, who are trying to get in so they can join the fight. Guarantee you that. I've seen that online numerous places, that there are people that are saying, let me at them, right? That if that's the case, that just going in there won't be any place for any, the death will be unthinkable. That I don't think that the Israeli society, that the Israeli mothers and fathers who have kids in the IDF are prepared for the kind of carnage. Now, the Palestinians, on the other hand, have been going through that devastating carnage for years. They've been attacked and they'll be bombed time and again, right? I don't think the Israelis are prepared for that. I don't think that if Israel is involved in a massive conflict, which it seems to be trying to get itself into, in a protracted conflict where they're taking incoming fire and missiles and rockets, all of these kind of things are going on, and it's now an unstable country, a country at war, a country that's taking losses, that's taking hits, a country that's, run by a very, look, let's face it, an unstable government. I think it falls apart. And I think everybody who can get out gets the hell out. That's what I think. I may be wrong, but that's my interpretation of things, simply because that's what human beings do. Look, there's a fight going on over there. I'm out of here. Look, you know what I know? Again, if you're self-defense, where do you get trained? You get trained there. You're in a bar and some people start woofing and they're going to fight. You get the hell out of that bar. Stray bullets ain't got no eyes. Some guy, I know my instructor, the guy's a 6th-degree black belt. We used to play basketball together. I've been playing with him, and some guy starts woofing at him, giving a hard time. You do this again. And I've seen him walk off the court. That's okay. I'm not playing anymore. Pick up his gym bag, his stuff, and go on about his business. Now, he could stand there and be tough because he knows if the guy swings at him, he can kill him in seconds. He's deadly. And other people would be like, dude, yeah, that ain't the guy you want to. That guy over there, you're picking a fight with that guy over there. People who knew my master instructor, just some guys woofing at him, and other guys on the court would be like, hey, dude, yeah, that ain't the guy you want to pick a fight with. That fight ain't gonna last long. You leave him alone. But what did he do? He picked his stuff up. He goes, I'm gone. He's gone. Because why? Because, hey, look, he's not getting involved in a confrontation. He's not getting involved in a fight. It's a matter of philosophy, right? That's any smart person sees a fight. What are you going to do? You're standing around. There's a bunch of people and you hear some guys screaming and yelling, getting ready to fight. What are you going to do? You're getting out of there. I'm going, hey, come on, get the kids, get the friends, get everybody. We're getting out of here. Because you don't want to be, a casualty, an unintended casualty, right? Everybody in Israel who can leave. And that's the thing about Israel. A lot of people have dual citizenship and they can leave, and they will leave. And they will leave. So we will see if Israel decides to involve itself in a significant and protracted military conflict. And let me add this. If a lot of Palestinians die, let's say they fight Hezbollah, whoever, right? And then Israel says, okay, we're going to go on we're going to work out a deal. We're not going to fight anymore. That ain't saying that the people who are angry at them are going to abide by that. You see, if they end up engaged with non-state actors, right? There's all of these in Iraq, these PMUs, these private military units, right? There are a bunch of them saying, we're ready to go to fight against the Israelis, right? You got the Yemen, the Ansar, what is that? They call them the Houthis, but they're Ansar Allah. They're over there and they're saying, let us at them. We're ready to go over there and fight. They were fighting the Saudis. And one day the Houthis are fighting, the Ansar Allah is fighting the Saudis. The next day, Ansar Allah and the Saudis will be going like, hey, everybody, let's get our guns and ammunition together. We're joining forces to fight the Israelis. Is that what you really want? I don't want that. You want that? That ain't a good place for Israel to be. And then what? They're at war with the entire Muslim region of the world. You ain't winning that one. And they ain't going to wake up and say, you killed X amount of civilians. And so you've said, we're going to stop now because we've killed X amount of civilians. So let's start from scratch and talk this thing out. No, they're going to be like, no, you started a fight and we'll decide when it's over, and it ain't never going to be over. What happens if the Israelis start a fight and they say, we'll decide when it's over? And let's say Hezbollah says, we're in on a deal. All right, we'll stop. And Hamas, whoever says, we're on a deal, we'll stop. But all these private fighters who are not members of Hezbollah or Hamas or any formal organization say, well, Hezbollah, you can stop. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, you various and sundry organizations, you can stop. We don't belong to any particular organization. And the answer is no. We're doing jihad against the Israelis, and we ain't stopping until they get the hell out. And with Palestine, you know what I'm saying? Then you're opening a can of worms that you really don't need to open in Israel. But, and I say this, You have to understand something, and this is very, very interesting. I'm going to throw this out there, something I've been thinking about. You have a conflict in Israel, right? Let me start here. You had a conflict in the Muslim world, the Sunni Shia conflict. I ain't saying it's over. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination it's over. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is this: the Chinese came in and they said, let's work out a deal here between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and we'll try to chill this thing out. And everybody wants to join BRICS. Hey, come on, man. We're all trying to eat. There's money to be made here. Let's do it this way. And the Saudis and the Iranians and the Syrians and everybody said, we are all trying to eat, and there's money to be made. Cool. So the Saudis and the Iranians, not things saying things are perfect. They shook hands. The Ansar Allah and they're still not happy, but the volume is turned way down between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, right? So we can see the beginnings of the edges starting to form of some kind of a Sunni Shia truce, as it were, some kind of limited, the conflicts between the two groups starting to limit, because Saudi Arabia and Iran are at the forefront of those two groups. So they're starting to turn down the volume on their conflict. But let's face it, in Israel, that ain't happening. In Israel, you've got and I never can pronounce this word right. Is it Mizrahi, with an H, how that's pronounced? Jews, who would be the settlers, who would be the Smotriches and the Ben Gavirs, etc. Right? You've got them, who tend to be the Taliban-esque kind. They want to turn Israel into a theocracy, doing pretty damn good job of it so far. And they want to change the governance of Israel so that they're in full charge and that Israel is kind of a Taliban-esque kind of state. You can see that's what they want. You can see they're in very powerful positions. Then you've got the liberals, which would be what do they call them? The Ashkenazi sect, the liberals. And they're kind of, I'm not going to say at war, but let's just say they ain't happy with each other. So in the context of internal Israeli politics and culture, there is an ongoing conflict between the liberals, the Ashkenazis, and the more religious extremist elements, right? And that's going on. That's why everybody was in the streets. That's what this whole thing about, lots of people being in the streets. And as you probably know, the Biden administration, we don't have to guess which side they're going to take, right? So they don't really like, and let me add this. And you have Netanyahu, which, let's just say this, he doesn't necessarily have a side. Netanyahu's side is Netanyahu. Why is that? Because he's a crook. Because Netanyahu is facing charges. And if he's no longer the prime minister, his butt is going to the Husgal, right? Because he's corrupt as hell. So he has this coalition with the settlers, the extremists, the Smotrich, Ben Gavir people. And it's not so much that he has to agree with them, which he does on a lot of things, but it's that he has to have a base of power to hold him in as the prime minister. Otherwise, he ain't the prime minister. He gets a free ride to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. He ain't getting $200. Him and probably his whole family, because they're a bunch of they're a bunch of crooks. So he's in a jam. He's in a mess. But internally, you have a squabble that was ongoing. There was people in the streets. They had trouble seating a government for the last 2 years. And when they get a government, it falls in the next 6 months. The country in and of itself is unstable. So you have a country that's politically unstable, and there's an internal cultural, religious, and political conflict going on. In the Arab world, with the Sunni, Shia, Iran, Saudi rapprochement, détente, whatever you want to call it, or the beginnings of that, They were actually going in the opposite direction, where the various, and we'll use this word, I don't know if it's appropriate, sects were coming together to iron out, bury the hatchet, shall we say. How successful they are or were or have been, I don't know. So you have one the major large element of people in the Middle East that are beginning to stabilize relationships within the various sects in their religion, in their culture, and you got the Israelis who were more unstable than ever. And now the unstable people are cooking up a pretty nasty fight with the ones that are becoming more stable. And as I said, you got to watch it, because if I'm a government in Israel, I mean, if I'm one of the Arab governments, one of the Muslim governments, I'm watching my P's and Q's, because the people on the street ain't happy and you could get overthrown. And what happens? What happens if one of these governments gets overthrown? One of these governments falls and is taken over by people who say, we've had it up to here and it's all out anti-Israel. And the military of Jordan, the military of Egypt is now taken over by people who are spoiling for a fight. And they say, all right, to the border of Israel we go. We're going to start lobbing missiles and blah, 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 whatever. And now you got a real hot war really brewing up with major countries against Israel. That's the chance they're taking. That's the chance they're taking. And I'll add this. Before I go, we got a few more minutes. You got to add the issue of Ukraine in. You've got to add that into this. There's no way you can have a discussion about what's going on there without talking about Ukraine. They're in a world of, well, they're in a mel of a hess, shall we say, as I used to say when I was a kid, because, in my house, you weren't allowed to say those hell, my mom, hell was a bad word. You couldn't say, you couldn't even say lie. You had to say, he's telling stories. She was one of those kind of people. No bad words. God knows I've made up for it since I've grown up, but they're in one mel of a hess, right? And they're at a time when they're running short of, their so-called offensive has flopped, as, let's face it, that wasn't hard to predict. They're begging for weapons, and they're finding the truth out. The truth out was the U.S. was never but so much into you anyway. They were using you as a convenient, they sharpened this country up like a knife to hold at Russia's throat. But now, they got other things going on. So it's like, yeah, it's like a guy who's got a girl that he likes. Yeah, she's all right. She's doing this and that. And then the hot babe Instagram model comes along. He's dropping you. He's dropping her. He wasn't interested in her in any way. He's kind of a narcissistic dude. And there comes the Instagram model. Off he goes after the Instagram model. The other girl, she's out of there. He was a shallow guy, kind of narcissistic, and he was going to take the hottest thing he could get his hands on. It was Ukraine for a while. Here comes the Instagram model. That's who he always wanted anyway, was the Instagram model, but he just dealt with you because he could, right? So they're like, hey, Ukraine, great, we can use it to harass Russia. And who gives, as Lindsey Graham's been like, yeah, what the hell, a lot of Ukrainians died, but we're getting to hurt Russia. We're killing Russians, and Ukrainians are dying too, but whatever the hell about that. Let's get back to the killing Russians. Hooray, right? That should have been a hint to the Ukrainians at that point. They should have woke up and said, hey, I don't know about that comment. Are you saying you don't give a crap about us dying? Because Lindsey Graham would have been like, what part of I don't really give a crap about you dying is so mysterious to you, Ukraine? That's what kind of your job. Keep doing it. We'll be over here. Oh, by the way, we don't have any weapons for you. You got shovels? You got shovels, don't you, to dig those trenches with them? Yeah, charge the Russians with shovels. That's the best we can get, advice we can give you. We'll be over here with Israel. See ya. Adios. Toodles. They're gone. They're gone. You don't hear the quotes of Lindsey Graham about Ukraine and Russia anymore, do you? No, you don't. He's talking about Israel. It's over for Ukraine. It's done. So now they've set you up against the mighty Russian army. And the Russians have been just kind of laying low, plinking away at you, doing what they got to do, hitting you here and there. They're in no rush. They were, one could argue, that the Russians know the history of the US and they knew that sooner or later they were going to leave your ass flat anyway. The Russians probably knew. It's just a matter of time. We'll keep looking at our clocks. Sooner or later. Might not be this week. Might not be next week. Oh, but Ukraine, the time will come. And when the time comes and they get the hell out of here, we ain't leaving. That's when we're coming for you. We're coming for Odessa. We're coming for Kharkov. We're coming for Kiev. We're coming for all of that. And you ain't going to have nothing but shovels. And you won't even have shovels. And the Americans will be over there in the Middle East doing God only knows what. And you are going to pay. And by the way, we're going to take everything. And the Americans won't even care anymore. It ain't like this. What do you think? Newland are going to be like, hey, we've got to attack the Russians and stop them. They don't care about you anymore. Yesterday's news. Let Ukraine, let them all die, and we'll deal with that after we get finished dealing with Israel. That's where they are now. And you see, like all these Ukrainians that were running around all cocky, going to France and Germany. You will give us more weapons. What the hell's wrong with you, you ungrateful scum? You must give us weapons. You will shut up. You know why? Because if you don't, I'm calling Joe Biden and Victoria Nuland, and they're going to come over and kick you right in the butt. So give us your weapons and shut up. We want your missiles. We want your food. We want everything. Shut up. We want your women. We want your firstborn male child. You will give us everything we ask for and then some. That's the way they've been running around Europe. And the Europe's being, they even said to the US, Europeans have been pissed. But what are the Europeans going to do? Because their masters in DC would call them, I thought I told you to give Zelensky everything he has. Yes, Master Biden. Shut up. Slam. That's what they were dealing with. Now they're going to call. They ain't getting no answer. Hey, hello, Schultz. Hello? Hello? Oh, hello? I'm sorry. The party you're calling has hung up and said, drop dead. That's what they're up against now. They're meeting the truth. They're meeting the truth. When it comes down to it, and their priorities, Ukraine. You know, one of the things that I've said, if you want people that follow me knows, what have I said? You are what your record says you are. And at some point, the neocons will look at Ukraine and they'll be like, we're out of here. This is getting to be too much trouble. There's something else going on over there. I didn't know that it would be Israel, but at some point, this is who they are. This is what they do. At some point, a bunch of people are going to be hanging off the fuselage of a C-130 while it takes off from Kiev, while the Russian army is coming to town. The Russian army is going to be on the outskirts coming in, and these neo-Nazis are going to be dangling off the fuselage of a C-130. It's going to be just like a Kabul. You see planes taking off, some guy dangling off the side, and he's dropping to his death, and there'll be like a picture with a little red circle. Hey, look, there's a guy, and he's like dangling, flopping him down in the air, dropping from 4,000 or 5,000 feet. As the plane starts to ascend into the clouds, the people start to fall off. The what do you call it? The landing gear folds up, and it's going to mush about 50 people who are dangling and holding on to the landing gear. They'll all be smashed to death. Everybody's done. That's what's coming for Ukraine. Just a matter of time. It was there all along. That was your fate. It's just a matter of now your fate is going to find you. And if you look at them, the U.S. is like, yes, we're going to supply both Ukraine and Israel. Let me add this. The U.S. is short of weapons, short of stuff. Very, very short. So what happens if Israel gets into this big, long, drawn-out firefight and starts to run out of weapons? And what are they going to do? Nuke themselves? Hey, we're going to fire a nuke on our border. And the people that live in the border towns are going to be, we're going to fire a who, what? On our border. It won't be in Israel. And they're like, but my house and my entire town is 1 inch from the border. Well, that's okay. At least technically, the nuclear material will float towards the border and just stop. The nuclear fallout will get to the border, and it'll be like, oh, wait, that's Israel. They're the good guys. We fired that. We better turn around and head towards the Muslims. That ain't the way it works. So they don't have that option. So they got problems, huge problems all the way around. And I don't see an out for them because the thing about it is Netanyahu can't back down, because if he does and he loses his prime ministership, the only thing waiting for him is a hole, buddy. He's going to jail. And not only that, the people in Israel, a lot of them, most of them blame him. They're like, what the hell were you doing? How'd this happen? I had a bunch of guys who in friggin' gliders with a fan on the back over to take over the mighty IDF. And let me add this. One of the things that has come out of this is something that a lot of people knew anyway, and that is the IDF is not the powerful fighting force that people thought it portended to be. Do they have F-15s and F-16s and F-35s? Okay, they can fly over and they can drop some bombs. You can do that. At some point, a man or woman, in this case, with a rifle, has to go in and take ground and hold ground. Military conflict, sooner, we're seeing it in Ukraine. Sooner or later in a military conflict, people with a rifle have to take ground and hold ground. That's what they got to do. They got to take that rifle, they got to walk in, and they got to take that ground, and they got to hold it, and they got to patrol it. And it gets dark, and people, snipers can fire, and they can be booby trapped. There'll be booby traps to hell. You think there ain't going to be any booby traps? That's all there's going to be. Everything you touch is going to be booby trapped if they head in there. And I mean, it's just and certainly, as I said, they'll be waiting for him. So Israel has got itself in a pickle. It may look like now, like everybody's like, go get them, Israel. The neocons, go get them, Israel. Go attack them. Go kill them. Go blah, 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 blah. Man, the best thing Israel could do would be call it off. The best thing Israel could do is say, look, this was a bad situation. It's time to sit down and talk, to bring in some countries and maybe work out a kind of a deal. But they ain't in a position to do that. And you have a country with an internal conflict. Think about it. All the people who were in the street for the last several months, that implies an internal conflict. And now there's going to be blame. There's going to be all that. And a lot of people getting out. So at any rate, let me look. Let's see. I love crap. I always have trouble. There we go. We're going to see if there are any. We're going to see if there are any, and there are super chats, because people always to say things. Oh, sorry for your loss, Garland. Thank you, the Iranian. Yeah, my brother. He was sick for a long time, and he had prostate cancer, and unfortunately he didn't go to, like so many men like us, he didn't go for long years to the doctor. And by the time he started getting back pain and things like that, he went to the doctor, and they're like, there ain't nothing much can be done. It's in its final stage. And then that was that. That's life. That's reality. And that's what happened. Old Crow Targeteer Garland, can you answer this for me? Okay, I'm ready. Are you considered a civilian if you served in a nation's military or in support of their intelligence services? If you served in the past, you're a civilian if you're not a currently serving member. Now, if you're currently serving, and see, in support of, I'll put it like this. If let's say we're at war and somebody fired a missile at the CIA headquarters, there are a lot of people there who work for CIA headquarters or the Pentagon. The Pentagon was hit in 9/11. Let's not forget, there were a lot of people killed. There was a number of people killed in the Pentagon. One thing you'll notice, when people talk about 9/11, they talk more about the World Trade Center, not much of it about the Pentagon. The reason is the Pentagon was a military target. You don't like it. So if you worked at if you are at a military base and you're a civilian, let's just say you happen to be visiting a military base and there's an attack on that military base and you get killed. That's different because you are at a place that is a legitimate military target. They didn't intentionally target civilians. That's a big part of it, the intentional target of civilians. As an example, military unit fires a missile aimed at a military target, and it gets hit and shot down beforehand. Somebody is able to shoot this missile and it drops into the city and it kills some civilians. They didn't intentionally target civilians. So it's not a war crime. It's different. But if in fact you are currently serving, or you're at a location that is a legitimate military target, Under international law, that changes things. That's what I'm saying. So I put it like this: you can't. And this would be easy to do. You can't just say we're going to interpret all these civilians because they're in favor of something bad. Therefore, we're going to interpret them as legitimate military targets. It doesn't work that way. The whole country can be in favor of something that is bad, that is evil, on and on and on. But the civilians are still not a legitimate military target. So that's a good question. We always get great questions. See what else we got here. Are there any super chats? Because we always get lots of good questions. When I get a chance, I'm going to read what people have this. Did I miss one? No. Oh, here we go. Darn it. Blind as a mole. Bernard says, how sick is it that evangelicals support Israel in all things only because they believe the Jews must be gathered there for collective slaughter by God, save for a remnant of a remnant who accept Christ? Yeah, it is pretty sick. I agree with you. It's pretty sick. And, you know, if I was Jewish, I'd be thinking to myself, with friends like that, who the hell needs adversaries, right? Hey, Garland, we're supporting you. Oh, great. Why are you supporting me? Well, because eventually you're going to get killed and die, and God's going to, kill you and everybody like you. But for now, we're supporting you so that that day can come and then God can come in and smite you. That's really odd. I don't know if the term support is appropriate when you say, I support you, Garland. Support might not be the right term. All right. You support me in the same way that you're going to sacrifice a goat, and you're supporting that goat until you can get him up there to slice his throat. Or let's say, I don't know, you're going to have chicken for dinner and you got wild chickens. Hey, I really support that chicken. What are you going to do? I'm going to take him around here and take a hatchet and cut his head off, and then we're going to cook him. Man, that's a strange way of supporting people. So I'm with you on that one, buddy. All right. John Roberts says, oh my God, the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Thanks for your unique point of view. I recall 1970s and oil shortage. Could Mideast countries perhaps not embargo, but reduce exports, cut production of oil to the West, and simply? Yes, I suspect we're going to see something like that. John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts. Yeah, I think we're going to see something like that. I think that's what's going to come. And to be quite honest, I would advocate for that. Because you know me, I advocate for peaceful solutions. So I would advocate for the OPEC countries to say, look, we don't want a regional war. We don't want this our region of the world to turn into a hellscape. So what we'd like to do, what we're going to do is we're going to use our leverage. When you negotiate, you got to have leverage. And when you're negotiating with psychopaths and sociopaths like, Tony Blinken, for instance, you got to have leverage. And they've got leverage, and I would like to see them use their leverage to halt the killing and to save the Palestinians from this ethnic cleansing that seems to be about to go down. Jedi Focus. Sorry for your loss, Mr. Nixon. Love this show and your show with Dr. Oh, good old Dr. Leon. Thanks a lot. I really enjoy it too. Let me keep going. Is there anyone else? Always have good questions. TNT, excuse me for yawning. I had a long day yesterday. Thanks, Garland, for your unending commitment to speak the truth. Not many people can do what you do. Thank you very much, TNT. Certainly appreciate it. Sherry, thank you, Sherry. Sparky, condolences. I agree with your Israel assessment. Thanks, Sparky. Well, then I must be right. If Sparky's agreeing with me, then I'm on the right track. I'll put it like this. What I try not to do is just to say I'm angry, which I am, certainly for obvious reasons. Most of us, if you're of a nature that you're concerned about humanity and about moral and ethical issues involved here and the safety of the Palestinians and the safety of everyone in the region, it's okay to be angry. But I like to try to take look. I'm not trying to go in the center, or I'm not trying to do something to make sure. No, I try to evaluate it as best I can. That's all I'm trying to do. Evaluate it as best I can, as non-emotional as I can. Not just be emotional and say, I'm angry, therefore I want to see this or that happen. And from a non-emotional way, what is the way, what's going on here? What are the dynamics? And what's a way that this is going to be resolved with the least possible violence? So that's not that that's going to happen, but that's what I'm all about. Aren't settlers legitimate targets to deter more settlers? If they're civilians, technically no. But it is a valid question. It is a valid question for this reason, because there have been issues with armed settlers attacking Palestinians, right? There have been issues with armed settlers literally murdering Palestinians, right? Um, Armed settlers, and that's, I think, an inappropriate term. These are people who've, come to a region that was Palestinian land, and they're squatters on it. They call them settlers, but I don't think that's an appropriate term. But that's what all we have. That's what we use, and we'll use it so everybody knows who we're talking about. Many of them are armed and have acted out in a violent manner against the Palestinians. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But I think I commented on it in a way that's responsible, in that, as my understanding of the rules of war, I believe that they are technically civilians. However, the fact that many of them are armed and have taken violent action against Palestinian, I don't know how that fits into this mix. And remember, there's women and children involved. And so even the settlers, whatever, women and children, I don't, that they should be involved in a conflict. So I don't know, but thanks for that. Was a good question. That the fact that I stumbled and bumbled through it as best I could means that it was a good question. Great question. Let me keep looking. All right, we're going to go to Rockfin and Pete. Let's see if anybody over Rockfin. Oh, we got a couple people at Rockfin had something to say. Let's see. Let's start with Anthony. Anthony says Israel is the most dangerous place in the world for Jews. If they went there to be safe, there's no reason for them to stay. Those settlers will go back to Brooklyn. That's what. Guess what, Anthony? I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. That's what I think. That's what I think. It's going to get more and more dangerous, and they're getting the hell out of there. Who wouldn't? How about we now go to No More Donation? Says, miss you on Twitter. I predict blowback in the majority Arab nations who are once again ignoring the plight of the Palestinian people are only virtue signaling to them. The population of these nations are not only expecting but demanding some actions to help the Palestinians. If these nations once again only throw crumbs, there will be a reckoning. Believe that. I agree. That's a point I'm making. Brilliant comment from No More Donations. I absolutely agree with you. This is very destabilizing for the Middle East. All right. I think that's it, is all I can think of. So here's what I'll say. Last but not least, if you can help the channel out, I'll certainly appreciate it. PayPal's an option. Buy me a coffee. A lot of people use that. You go in there, it just says, buy Garland a coffee, $5, and however many coffees you want. And it'll then also, it's just like Patreon now. So it'll say, do you want to do a subscription for monthly? Buy me a coffee is an option. Certainly. I've got all of the other information you'll see there, my Cash App, all that kind of stuff. If you can help the channel, I certainly appreciate that. If not, that's fine. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Just if in fact, use the money for your family or whatever you need. If you can't afford it, don't give it to me. Also, last but not least, God knows for this thing, for this video alone, which I don't think I've done anything wrong, but that doesn't mean I won't get tossed off of YouTube. Jackson Hinkle was recently tossed off YouTube for, I don't even, that was unfair and unreasonable censorship. So, if you can, go to my Rockfin, ROKFIN, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. That costs nothing to be a member. You can see all my stuff if you can afford it. If you can afford it, become a subscriber. It's $14.99 a month. If you can become a subscriber, certainly appreciate that. And if you sign up for a year, they give you a couple months. It comes to like $12.40 or something a month. So if you can do that, if not, thanks a lot. Just share this on all your social media platforms. It's football season, so stiff arm that like button. That's right. Smash the like button. Share this everywhere. Thanks a lot. Peace. I'm out.